listening to Big Picture You podcast series from VCG Studios.
Good morning, afternoon, or night, everyone. Coming to you from the cozy comfort of the VCG Media Broadcast booth, I'm Verve Coach Gordon, and you are listening to Big Picture You, the podcast series where wellness practices and concepts meet practical application and real-life example. The premise in Episode 10, Season 2, Manipulating the Future Through Addressing Regrets, is that regrets, like truth, can be tricky propositions, partly because if you change any tidbit or regrettable actions or behavior from the past, everything from thenceforward may turn out differently and not possibly so well comparatively. Meanwhile, we're tasked with trying to run our lives in ways that do not create situation for or facilitate regret. Regrets are also about admitting truths, so it will be a nice tie-in to the last episode, Episode 9 of Season 2, The Truth About Truth. One very real question when looking at engaging regrets, I believe, is, do you love your life currently? Where you've landed is a very important consideration when looking at manipulating the future. The Big Picture You podcast series is available at our awesome host site, Anchor.fm, and is also available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, RadioPublic, and Breaker, and on my YouTube channel. Welcome, listeners from around the globe. I'm so grateful that there are new listeners from different parts of the world after each episode is posted. Thanks very much for your support and for spreading the word. Here at the VCG organization, we always strive to be a wellness entity and provider that remains super inclusive and equitable in all of our practices. If you find it to be otherwise, please let me know. Just drop me a note at gordon@vervecoach.com. I'd love to hear from you. Now on to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Big Picture You podcast series, Manipulating the Future Through Addressing Regrets. And as always, feel free to reach out to me with questions or comments, or if you need clarification on any points. As I mentioned up front, regrets, like truth, can be a tricky proposition, and since regrets are also about facing and admitting truths, this episode will most certainly be a nice tie-in to that Episode 9 of Season 2, The Truth About Truth. Now, in my mind, a big picture of the trickiness of addressing regrets comes to us in a few ways. One way is that if you were able to go back and change any tidbit of your life's narrative or eliminate what you deem to be regrettable actions or behavior, it's possible that everything from thenceforward may turn out differently and possibly not so well as it is currently by comparison. Also, many of life's lessons are learned through making what are perceived as mistakes, things that may also cause instance for regret in the long run. Meanwhile, we are tasked with trying to run our lives in ways that do not create situation for or that facilitate instance for regret in the first place from the get-go. And I'm going to look at these points individually, then I'm going to bring them all together within the relationships of the 11 energies of the Verve and in the bottom line segment, both later in this broadcast. So I'm thinking that most of us have seen or read some time travel movie or book plot wherein the characters travel back in time, but must remain out of sight and mind of the natural inhabitants of that time. One of the first works of time travel fiction, and credited with popularizing the notion of time travel, is author H.G. Wells' book, The Time Machine. It was later made into movies, stage production, and television programs. The concept of time travel has been rehashed since then in a multitude of creative works with either happy plot endings, or not so positive plot endings. But for H.G. Wells' character in the book The Time Machine, even though he traveled backward and forward through time, the experience was not a super positive one, which then affected his ability to be well adjusted in his own time. So, eventually off he went. No one is really sure to when, either to the past or possibly back to the future. Yes, Back to the Future, a super popular movie series with the entire premises being do not change anything or interact with anyone in the past, or you will cause a cascade of negative events that will change the course of history and time itself. More recent Netflix time travel offerings include Boss Level, involving a time loop to the past and the lead character avoiding his own murder, and The Tomorrow War, related to the lead character fighting in a future war to save humanity. Both of those are fairly violent action flicks, wherein violence and aggressiveness far outweigh kindness and care in directing the course of humanity. Interestingly, both of these movies represent the dynamic of the dystopian future that the character in H.G. Wells' story saw, fed by the past that he saw. It would actually appear that art does indeed imitate life, and life does indeed imitate art. And remembering, of course, that these are fictitious examples, the question remains, if you change anything that you see as regrettable in your past, would your life be positively enhanced or in some capacity diminished? Which leads me to the second point. Many of life's lessons are learned through making what we perceive as mistakes, things that may have potential to cause instance for regret in the long run. However, if the dynamic of regret is removed, will we continue to learn and grow as human beings? Can we then remain accountable for our words, actions, and behavior? So many lessons are to be learned from potentially regrettable instances and situations. But on the other hand, and leading us to point number 3, I believe we should do our best to manage our lives in ways that minimize situation for facilitating regret in the first place. Phew. This is all a very tall order, and like many concepts, notions, and practices here at Big Picture U and the VCG organization, it takes consistent work to minimize creating and maintaining environments and situations that lead us to the facilitation of regret. Lots to think about when addressing regret. Trying to manipulate time travel back and forth. Interesting stuff. And now, as I do in every episode, I will relate the episode's main content to some of the 11 energies of the verve. Now, in the last episode, The Truth About Truth, I began with energy number 6, truth. So at the risk of sounding redundant, I'm going to start with energy of the verve number 6, truth, once again. And really just to once again express that a huge part of minimizing facilitation of regret is about admitting truths, both negative and positive, about yourself and others. Moving right along to energy of the verve number 8, and going hand in hand with number 6, truth, is forgiveness. Again, both of others and yourself. Forgiveness is a very strong tool in creating a well-adjusted lifestyle. Now I'm going to slide energy of the verve number 7, self-value, in right here with this question. If you are not worth the efforts necessary to minimize regret, leading to greater life's happiness and fulfillment, then who is? Alrighty. Energy of the verb number 9, sparkle. In addressing and minimizing regret, you will be led to a space that is rife with potential for greater happiness and joy, while helping yourself live in the moment. No longer dwelling on the past, but instead using the now to ensure a strong and harmonious future that allows that special something, that unique sparkle that makes you you, to shine through. And you can see all 11 energies of the verb, their descriptions, and their color values at my website, or please reach out to me for a small carry-along card, gordon@vervecoach.com. There are myriad connections yet to be revealed to the 11 energies of the verb, and as always, I invite you, the listener, to explore and reveal those connections on your own. And reach out to me, let me know what you're revealing and finding out there. And remembering all the while, folks, that regardless of my stories, examples, and narratives, this truly is all about your journey. Alrighty now, here's the big picture takeaway for today's episode. Bottom line, as I said up top, one real question when looking at and gauging regrets is, I believe, do you love your life currently? Where you've landed is a very, very important consideration when thinking about the notion of addressing regrets. And of course, it is impossible to be regret-free. There is no perfection on this plane of existence. In clearing existing regrets, please acknowledge and absorb the hurt. The important thing is to move on from it quickly. And do not hesitate to get moving down a refreshed and renewed path of minimizing the facilitation of regret, leading you to greater personal freedom and greater control over your own future. I know I've been throwing about the term manipulate the future throughout this broadcast, and that's really relative to walking the tenuous line between living a sound life in the moment that does not create instance or circumstance for regret, while avoiding obsession with perceived regrets from the past. Now you're walking this line between those two, all the while wearing a backpack full of ever-shifting notions, concepts, and all of the requirements of building the solid future. Again, let your work and values in the moment reveal and define a wonderful future for you. Don't disregard the past, though. Use it as a reference, but try your best not to dwell on or obsess over it. And always consider where you've landed. Do you love those spaces and roles? Yikes! Once again, I'm going to say a tall order and tricky darn stuff. But as always, if we strive to do our best, our success rates will be much higher than if we try very little or not at all. It really is that simple. As together, we bring about our most fulfilling big picture you, big picture me, and big picture us. And since our lives are an open and wonderful canvas upon which to create a beautiful masterpiece, I thank you once again for the opportunity to provide you with tools, materials, and mediums to assist you in creating your life's masterpiece. The foundational values, 11 energies of the verb, can be referred to at any time to help negotiate, challenge, help in decision-making, or gain motivation and positivity. You can see I get a little bit worked up about it. The book is available at Amazon or through my website if you'd like a signed copy. It is also available in select hospital gift stores and medical marijuana dispensaries. It's a wonderful healing and wellness guide, as well as a great support mechanism for New Year's resolution achievement. I'm offering a holiday special from November 1st through December 31st that includes 3 free personal coaching sessions with the purchase of an 11 Energies of the Verve book. Get your copy today, folks. Please tune in to the broadcast next time for Season 2, Episode 11, The Humanness of Humanity, leading us closer still to greater levels of personal harmony that will absolutely lead to greater harmony in our groups, organizations, and institutions, and vice versa.
You are listening to Big Picture You podcast series from VCT Studios.
Please visit my website for news and announcements as well as regular updates. All content, text, and music in the Big Picture You podcast series is copyright Verve Coach Gordon unless otherwise cited. In this episode, I believe that includes reference to H.G. Wells' book The Time Machine, the movie Back to the Future, and Netflix originals Boss Level and The Tomorrow War. Thanks so much for listening to the broadcast today. If you have any feedback, please reach out to me. Once again, Gordon at vervecoach.com with questions or even answers for that matter. And please remember, kindness is beautiful, both toward others and yourself, in creating an amazing and empowering big picture you, big picture me, and big picture us. Be well, my friends.